Continuing on with the idea of copying and the different kinds of definitions that we can really have for what a copy means, this time we're going to look at an overloaded operator. Do recall that in chapter 14 it was table 14 underscore 2. You can see all of the operators that you can overload, provide additional functionality for. Remember that C++ will choose which operator essentially you mean based on the the what it is that you are passing to that operator. So we can overload the input, we can overload the extract, we can overload just about everything when it comes to C++. But in this example, what we are going to do is overload the equals operator. So this way, we go beyond the functionality that we had with the copy constructor, and we can simply say student1 equals student2. Student2 equals student3, and keep going that way. And what we will end up doing is we will take the right hand of the equals sign, like we always do when we do assignment in C++, and we will take that and change the value of whatever is on the left-hand side of the equals sign. So those are just pieces of foreshadowing here for when we get through and look at our test student, I think it's called test student test scores. So before we go over and hop over to our student test scores.h, it's worth noting that we are going to have 3 students here declared: a student 1, a student 2, and a student 3. Kelly Thornton, Jimmy Griffin, Kristen Lee. So I'm just going to go ahead and run that. And the first thing that we will notice is after our declarations, anytime now, we are going to see 3 distinct sets of variables with 3 distinct sets of values for each one of our 3 students. And that is this block of text up here. Kelly, Jimmy, Kristen, different. But what's going to happen is our interesting bit right down here is the assignment that happens with the equals operator on line 32. You can see student 3 equals student 2 equals student 1. Now, before we go take a look at student test scores.h, it's worth one more reminder about how it is that C++ looks at doing the math. We start on the right-hand side of the operation so that we can assign its values to the left. But because of precedence, we do not start with student 2 equals student 3. We start all the way on the right-hand side with student 2 equals student 1. Worth mentioning just as a refresher here. So when we go look at test scores, student test scores.h, everything else has remained the same, but right down here, we are going to look at our overloaded equals operator. This is where all the new stuff really happens. First and foremost, we do not have to use constant here, but because we are creating a copy, constant makes sense because we are not going to do anything with those values once we have them. And this only happens at the time of assignment. So constant can be used here at the very start of our declaration, and it is here inside of the parens saying that the object it is that we have received also is going to be constant. The new wrinkle additional to that is right here, operator equals. So the equals operator is what we are overloading. The operator keyword lets C++ know, okay, what are you about to fiddle with? And the answer here is equals. Also notice we've got student test scores and right. The and right is going to point to the right-hand side of the equals operand. So what we're dealing with here is going to be two objects, everything on the left-hand side and everything on the right-hand side of the equals sign. So we can see where that comes to use here in line number 65. Student name equals right dot. Oop, I missed a line. Here, let me do that. The first thing we do is we delete test scores. You can see that is right here. That is our destructor for that object. So what we're doing is we are saying everything on the left-hand side, delete that. And we are going to create a new object based on what it is that we are receiving from the right-hand side of the operand. So now that we have our previous object out of the way, destroyed, no longer referenceable in memory, we can move down here to line 66. The right dot student name is going to be associated with student name. Right dot number test scores for number of test scores. So you can see what we're doing here is we're taking everything on the right hand side of our equals operator and we're assigning it to whatever is on the left. And then what we're doing here in our next three lines is we're creating our array of test scores and reading into our array of test scores the scores from the object on the right hand side of our equals operator. Here is the payout, I suppose, to the foreshadowing that I've been doing all the way back to the chapter material is the this keyword. We are referring here inside of this function to an object. That object we're referring to is the one that is actually on the left-hand side of the equals operator. So what we're going to do is return a pointer to this object. So we've already gone and created a new object. That happens after the delete call happens to the destructor on line number 65. So now that we have a new object there, what we're going to do is return a pointer to this, the new object that we have created. When we do that, the new object is going to be associated with or returned to and become the value of student 2 in this operation. When that is completed, we continue over to the left. Student 3 equals student 2, and we do the exact same thing. Student 2 becomes the right-hand side of the operator. Student 3 rather, becomes the left. We destroy the previous student 3. We create a new student 3 with the values that are stored in student 2. Remember, the values that are stored in student 2 are actually from student 1. Equals, right to left goes the assignment here in this line. So the second time it is that we call on display student, we're going to display student 1, student 2, student 3. However, this time around, they are all with the values of student 1 because of this here line number 32. Now, a note on overloading operators. This makes sense, I think, insofar as an artificial sort of a description for an academic sort of a problem. Back with the chapter material, I said, look, you could overload the plus operator when you are working with student objects to create a group, because you can say, look, when you are receiving as an argument in an addition equation, what we can do is overload that and give new functionality to student 1 plus student 2 plus student 3 equals group 1. You know, we can create that kind of functionality, but don't go nuts. Part of what the chapter 4 material does, and they actually spend more time telling you not to than they tell you to do things with operator overloading, it's because it's going to have consequences down the road, and it's going to be your fault that there are consequences down the road when they expected, the equals operator to do something else, even if there were two objects involved. So you do have to exercise caution. Make sure that you are really controlling when and where and why you can use an overloaded operator like that. But it is nice to know, I think, as a budding developer, that there are only 4 things that you cannot overload in C++, and the rest of the domain of that is yours to command as you desire. Unlimited power.